Welcome to the Leo Zagami show. Today I will be conducting this show on my own because due to the recent loss of our mascot Rambo Zagami, a little dog that many people knew around the world, is still mourning, and so she will be back next week. I hope that's okay for you guys. The Leo Zagami show, of course, will probably never be the same without Rambo, but I wanted to dedicate today's show to him, and I would like to, in fact, start this show with the images of maybe happier times. I picked up this brief Happy Thanksgiving we put together a few years ago. Rambo, I repeat, was more than a dog for us. He followed us everywhere in all my adventures. He was almost 17, or probably was 17, because we adopted him back in 2008. I'm gonna, of course, miss him, and my wife misses him terribly. These are images of me, Christy, and Rambo at the Info Studios a few years ago with Alex Jones. Here you can see Rambo, probably the only Chihuahua to ever be featured on the Alex Jones show. And like I said, I would like to open today's show before entering, of course, the news with this brief Happy Thanksgiving. And I know it's not Thanksgiving. We are today on the 17th, August 17th, 2024. But like I said, this is just a memory that I would like to share with all of you of happy times. Here we are.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Happy Thanksgiving! Rambo, the dog
we
with,
just wanted
with
to
a lot
make a
of
video
style. This dog,
and say Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
He's wearing an Hawaiian shirt.
We wish we were there. Maybe next year, who knows, if the gas goes down. But we wanted to just say Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we hope you have a great time, and I'll probably call you too. So I love you guys.
Buona festa del ringraziamento.
That's in Italian.
That's in Italian version, Italian remix.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we wish you all the best today. Have a great time, eat plenty of turkey, and possibly get drunk in a positive way. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving. Of course, like I said, it's not Thanksgiving, but it was definitely a happier moment. Rambo was with us for so long. His story is also very particular. I dedicated a fairy tale to Rambo, which I actually was asked to put together a few years ago for the Boy Scouts of this village where I was living in Italy. And it's actually a rather true fairy tale because Rambo was the only survival, the only thing that survived out of a terrible car crash. He was on an RV. These illegal Mexican immigrants on an RV had crashed with a truck, and he was in this small plastic cage that miraculously he was the only survivor. Like 4 or 5 people died that day on this RV. Nobody claimed him. He was adopted by us later on. He was found in a farm by another dog a couple of days later. And so 2008 was the year in which I was accused of espionage. I was arrested in Norway. A lot of terrible things happened, but Rambo came into my life and into the life of my wife as an angel, and he will always be remembered also by all of you who follow the Leo Zagami. show. I want to thank also for today's episode the sponsors: Bruce Scottish, Daniel Estes, Lance Roberts, Margorzata Minta, and David Kammerer. Next week, of course, my wife will be back. For the moment, guys, it's me on my own, and I will be talking about a very important subject, because it's almost like we are reliving a nightmare altogether, since Kamala has been now running for the office of President of the United States. Suddenly, we have a complete change, at least in the polls, but the polls, we know, they are not that honest. And suddenly they're all saying Kamala is going to win, Trump is losing, the Republican Party is scared. It's all a massive psyop. Psyop means psychological operation. Now, psychological operations should never be conducted on a domestic audience, especially here in the United States, because there is actually laws that protect the US citizens. We are the only country within the NATO alliance that is protected by psyops, but there is unfortunately a constant use of psyops, not only from the military, but also from the private sector and from the deep state. There is so many institutions that have showed they don't like Donald J. Trump. We have seen it also on the 13th of July when Thomas Crooks attempted to the life of former President Trump. So, and of course, with the head of the Secret Service at the time being one of the closest friends of Jill Biden, we are lucky that Trump survived this assassination attempt. They did everything possible and imaginable, and still to this day, the FBI is holding now secret files concerning that day that we can't even exceed with the use of FOIA. So there is something completely wrong about that day. In many ways, it reminds us of the assassination of JFK, but we will probably talk about that for a very long time. Today, we want to focus, though, on what is happening with Kamala Harris. In this episode of the Leo Zagami show, we want to understand what they are doing, what they're planning for us. Remember, this is the border czar who let almost 20 million illegals in this country, and they're doing it only so they can achieve a change in the political landscape of our once great country. We hope it's going to be great again, but of course, if the next elections are stolen, that's not going to be easy anymore to guarantee that this country stays the United States of America, because there will probably a few states that the day after Kamala Harris is declared the winner of the election, and I hope it never happens, they will immediately succeed from the union. I hope that doesn't happen. Trump, yes, didn't release all the JFK files, but that's not because of Trump, but because the military industrial complex and the intelligence community, they still have a lot to hide in regards to that assassination. Regarding, though, Kamala Harris, this woman attempted to run for president a few years ago. She never became the presidential nominee. She was then picked up because, of course, of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the whole thing. As soon as the Republicans said that, immediately all the media, they're racist, and they are, of course, accusing Trump of being a racist now every day. I mean, the way this situation is unfolding, it's really incredible how we can tolerate the lies of these media, but they are just mercenaries, all of them. And of course, we have to also make a prayer today for an old friend of ours. He was the owner of a radio which actually carried for a time the Leo Zagami show. He didn't follow my advice, unfortunately, ended up going on January 6th inside the Capitol Hill. He was, I repeat, the owner of a digital radio and an old friend who I had many times on my own show, and suddenly things have changed for Darrell Neely. This article I want to show you today that I went across, because unfortunately there is still no way of contacting him. He spent a while in jail. He was accused of even smoking a joint in the office of Nancy Pelosi. Like I said, he used to be the owner of a radio. Nowadays, unfortunately, he's sleeping under a bridge. J6 political prisoner Darrell Neely. He's sleeping under a bridge because he was banned from a homeless shelter and needs, of course, our help. Darrell was one of the few people of color who entered on January 6th on the Capitol Hill. He wasn't immediately arrested, but later on the FBI got on him. He didn't really do anything wrong because he was representing the radio. He was trying to do a reportage. We had this radio that I was collaborating with, and he said, "Oh, Leo, I want to go in." On January 6th, he went in, and he was only released in June of this year. I lost contact with him. I tried to contact him through the previous mails and phone numbers. He's an excellent human being. And it's really sad to see the way these people are treated. There is, however, as you can see here, a way of maybe putting his professional life and his personal life back together, because there is a give and go also that, as you can see, is raising already almost $20,000. So we wish him all the best to Darrell, and hopefully we can see him again soon. Like I said, he was only trying to be a journalist. He went in and he didn't do anything wrong. A lot of people didn't do anything wrong, and they ended up being political prisoners of the Biden-Harris administration. Biden, a little over a month after the terrible assassination attempt of Trump, that I thought for a moment, maybe naively, that could change at least this whole hate division, has the courage to go in front of people and say things like what I'm about to show you. I mean, this really is incredible. Biden, it's inviting his supporters to beat up Trump supporters. I mean, this is insane. I mean, it's just like, you don't do that kind of thing. I mean, this is insane. Listen to what Joe Biden.
What our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them.
Beat the hell. I mean, guys, listen to the words. This is like inciting violence against your political opponents is unacceptable. In America and in anywhere else in the world is unacceptable, but this guy is old, he gets away with murder.
Let me tell you what our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them. I mean it.
He means it. He said he means it. Now, that's very sad. That's very sad. I mean, Biden is completely out of it, trying to rewrite history.
I'm excited about, beyond the specifics of this, we're rewriting history. We're allowing history to be written what happened.
But what kind of history you are rewriting? Joe, what kind of history? You have been the most divisive president in the history of the United States. You are supposed to be the unifier.
So our children, our grandchildren, everybody understands what happened and what can still happen. Matter of fact, something happened here similar recently.
What the? I repeat, we have people who have done absolutely nothing, who are now sleeping under a bridge. And the insane thing about, I mean, why I'm talking so much about Daryl ending up under a bridge is because he ended up under a bridge because in the homeless shelter, they wouldn't take him because he's a former January 6th political prisoner. So because of that, he's not allowed in Washington, D.C., because he's always been there in Washington, D.C. He was based in Washington as a conservative radio talk show host and YouTuber. He was rebroadcasting all my shows for the people who remember Daryl. I mean, he was very loyal to the Leo Zagami show. So that's why I'm trying to give him the right space today talking about him. The fact that now there is like a sentence that requires him to remain in North Carolina, where he intended to reside with his ex-wife. But when he arrived at their home in Greensboro, he quickly realized the woman he once called wife, who is a Democrat, had basically didn't want to have anything to do with him, repulsed by everything he stood for. He basically, the former wife demanded he left immediately. So he then found himself without a home, fresh out of prison, after also becoming unemployed. Joe Biden weaponized the Justice Department, seized his assets, and confiscated his life saving for his role in the Capitol riot. Basically, Daryl has lost everything. And this because he's now in the deep blue city in North Carolina, in a deep blue city. He doesn't have even access to a shelter and has to sleep under a bridge. This is just crazy. So we hope now with this money he can at least maybe go back, I don't know, stay there, because he has to stay there apparently, but at least have a decent life, maybe build up another radio station. I would definitely join him once again like I did in the past. Going back to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was supposed to be the border czar, but we know millions of people entered in the US in the last few years since she started with Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris administration. And Kamala Harris has presided over the biggest mass migration in world history. In October, it was estimated in October that more than 10 million people had reportedly illegally entered the United States since President Joe Biden. And there is those who say the number is 20 million. This is the greatest number in history. No other administration has done this. The total of the amount of people who have entered the United States is more than the individual populations of 41 states combined. Now, new numbers also are arriving from the US Customs and Border Patrol that apparently showed us that there was also a app a fast entry app, phone app that was created by Kamala Harris and the Biden administration to let people easily inside the United States. Joe Biden has done everything possible because he's not Biden, he's not Harris. This is the Jesuits. The Jesuits historically control South and Central America. This is what I've been denouncing for years. And nowadays, they don't let me even on the Alex Jones shows anymore because the Catholic Church, the Vatican, has managed to silence Alex Jones on this subject. While the invasion continues, and the United States of America is gradually losing their independence towards those people there in the Vatican. Because this is a Roman Catholic invasion. And this Roman Catholic invasion will continue, of course, with the potential Kamala Harris presidency, which is just a follow-up and an even more extreme Marxist version. I mean, what Kamala is stating about fixing the price of goods in supermarkets is the stuff of communist dictatorships. CNN just destroyed Kamala Harris' economic agenda in this clip, which I'm about to show you.
I read your piece and I heard you just mention it. The federal ban on price gouging for groceries. You are skeptical of this. Why?
Well, first of all, nobody can explain what price gouging means. It's like that old line about pornography. I know it when I see it, in the sense that what does it mean to have an excessive price or an excessive profit margin? That seems to be shorthand for a price or a profit margin that bugs me. That seems too high. So, it's very hard to pin down what this would actually mean. If you look at the legislation that, as I mentioned, is already in the Senate, led by Senate Warren and Senator Bob Casey and a slew of others, the particular way that this is written, which is likely to be the template for any proposal that Harris would eventually embrace, is especially bad in that it just bans excessive prices, grossly excessive prices, grossly excessive profit margins, and says that the Federal Trade Commission can use any metric it deems appropriate to decide what that would mean, which basically says, like, it's not going to be markets, it's not going to be supply and demand that's determining how much your grocery store charges you for milk or for eggs. It's going to be some bureaucrat in DC, which seems like totally unworkable, first of all, for the FTC to be deciding like how much Kroger charges.
Well, of course it's unworkable. We are living in market capitalism. This is capitalism. It's not communism. We're not in Venezuela. We're not in Cuba. We're not in communist China. And yet Kamala Harris wants to create a situation which will be impossible to manage in a capitalistic country. It will mean abandoning a system. Suddenly, I decide the price of milk, the price of eggs, the price of this and that from the White House. I mean, that is totally anti-American.
For eggs in Michigan, but it also would be very bad for markets. We've seen this kind of thing tried in lots of other countries before, Venezuela, Argentina.
I mean, even these bozos at CNN understand it. Even these bozos at CNN.
Soviet Union, etc. It leads to shortages. It leads to black markets, plenty of uncertainty. And beyond that, the specific way this bill is written might actually increase prices because of some of the other language in it. Things like requiring public companies to disclose in their quarterly reports, their quarterly earnings reports, how they're setting prices, which is a great way to help them collude, which normally we don't want them to do. So anyway, you know, the devil's in the details, I guess, for that bill, but it's really hard for me to imagine any form of legislation that preserves the spirit of what she's proposing that would not be, you know, at best do nothing, at worst cause a lot of harm.
So here we're talking about CNN. I mean, it's the Communist News Network. If they can't view this whole Harris proposal positively, I don't know who can. Kamala Harris wants to transform America in a communist hellhole, a Marxist nightmare. We can't accept that. It goes against every American principle. That's the reality. And at the same time, she doesn't seem to get it. She seems to be stuck on some kind of Soviet-style agenda.
To pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
Price gauging on food. Price gauging on food. Yes, and she wants to pass a federal ban. It's really difficult to understand what she wants to do because it's not realistic. It's not part of our market economy, our capitalism can't embrace this kind of concept. But Kamala Harris is a communist. That's the truth. And this is what she says.
Everyday prices are too high. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. The bills add up.
Yes, because it's your administration. You can't pretend you were living on Mars when you were living in the White House for the last since 2021. I mean, it's been 4 years of hell for America, this Biden administration, and she wants to pretend she was on another planet. She's coming down on this planet because she's about to lead us to new prices, to a new reality. She was the one that always said Bidenomics here, Bidenomics there, Bidenomics is a great success. Now she's saying something completely different.
Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes, prescription medication, the cost of food. A loaf of bread costs 50% more. Ground beef is up almost 50%.
Yes, it's been like this since the moment Joe Biden started to change all the policies regarding, first of all, the drilling, gas, oil, because also of your war against Russia and what you have been doing by giving billions and billions and billions of dollars to Zelensky. You have basically ruined this economy that was already volatile and quite fragile due to the pandemic, and you have now sabotaged it completely. And at the same time, you say you have the solution. What kind of solution? This is really the biggest lie ever. Listening to Kamala Harris and listening to the media saying that she's so great, the common folk, the average Joe, the ignorant, especially those brainwashed millennials, will almost believe she is the solution to all our problems. While instead, with Kamala Harris, we are probably facing the destruction of the United States of America. And then there is no turning back. This woman is a representative of Satan himself, but the Psyop, the psychological operation they are actually leading in this moment on the brains of the American people is embarrassing almost. You go on CNN, you go on CNBC, you go on NBC, you go on every other channel, and you just see these people saying, wow, Kamala here, Kamala there. Kamala was somebody that nobody wanted to even mention. It was an embarrassment. I remember when a few months ago it came out with, I think it was Project Veritas or somebody else who had recorded a staffer from the White House admitting they only kept her there because of the color of her skin. So what has changed since then? It's always the same person. And what she's proposing is basically solving the problems that she has created with the Joe Biden administration, which is basically Barack Hussein Obama and Alex Soros behind the scenes. They are trying to suddenly change everything and propose her as this great, strong woman, this new Margaret Thatcher. She's not. She's not. She was somebody who arrived here in California to the positions she held through, let's say, an instrumental use of her mouth. That's it.
There's a serious housing shortage. The price of housing has gone up. It's too difficult to build, and it's driving prices up. It is out of...
This is all you're making. And that's why, I mean, if you still believe in politicians in this day and age, you need to go to a good psychologist. Because really, believing in a politician these days means believing in Father Christmas, means believing in the impossible. Pigs fly, and Kamala Harris is giving you the solution of all the problems that they have created themselves, the Democrats. So this is really a joke, but a bad joke, played on the American people, like Zelensky is a bad comedian playing a bad joke on the people of this whole world, with the possibility that we are now entering a nuclear Armageddon of sorts, or definitely a direct confrontation with Russia, because the more we encourage Zelensky by giving him weapons he wasn't supposed to use in Russian territory, the more Zelensky just does the opposite of what you tell him. So that's how it is. But let's continue to hear the great stateswoman, you call it statesman or stateswoman? Stateswoman, I guess so. Kamala.
The size of down payments have gone up as well. Costs are still too high. There's not much left at the end of the month, and prices are still too high.
It's just sick.
Yes, it's just, you're not sick. You're not sick. I would like to show something to, especially to my American friends, in regards to what is happening around the world today. And there is a few things that we're going to discuss probably in part 2 of this show, because as you know, it's a little bit difficult to have certain discussions when you're still on Facebook and YouTube. So remember, in 10 minutes from now, we will be changing, we will be moving only on X and Rumble for the second part of this show. But I want to show you how NATO claims they're fighting some kind of cognitive warfare and propaganda war against Russia.
Russian actions have made its relationship with the West a challenge, threatening Euro-Atlantic security. Coupled with the redistribution of geostrategic power, including the rise of China, Russia will cooperate with like-minded countries. To do so, Russia will use a suite of military and non-military hybrid warfare tools. One of Russia's greatest strengths is the use of cyber tools for gray zone operations, and the weaponization of information, blurring fact from fiction, influencing perception.
Ooh, facts from fiction. At times, actually, we get some truth from the so-called fake news that NATO is trying to brand a Russian product. I mean, fake news. But what is fake news, really? They are playing on us a constant cognitive warfare. That is the new thing. Before it was the psychological operations only. Now there is a whole war on your mind in which you are the subject of a immense brainwashing operation that is claiming that Kamala Harris is the solution of all our problems, only because they say that we should just dismiss the whole of the media altogether. Anybody that claims that Kamala Harris today is somebody who deserves to be in the office of President of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States, Kamala, it's insane to even think about it, guys. Kamala Harris is an illusion. She's just what she used to be a year ago. She doesn't have any brains. She's just reading from a teleprompter, and she's refusing to do interviews. Trump does maybe an interview a day. He doesn't have any problems in chatting with Elon Musk or chatting with Fox or chatting with whomever he feels like. No, he doesn't have a problem. He gives interviews all the time. Kamala Harris, oh man, it's all shredded in secret. It's all like, what is Kamala gonna do next? Why don't you ask her? Why doesn't she get interviewed by somebody? It's insane, guys. And it's insane to think that the DNC, of course, convention is about to start. And in downtown Chicago is a leftist city. I mean, unfortunately, I've been there. The city is brainwashed. They vote a mayor after the other. The mayor of the city of Chicago, they are destroying the city. The politics of the Democrats from Obama onwards have destroyed the city, but they continue to vote Democrats. So that's okay. If they want to, if somebody wants to continue on their suicide mission, that's okay. But now the crazy thing is they are guesting the DNC convention. So one aspect, one says, okay, a lot of leftists will gather together, they will open all the restaurants, they will make Chicago a nicer place. No, look at what is happening at Chicago now. They are fearing the arrival of left-wing extremists. Like Kamala is not left extreme enough. There is even more left. The people who are super pro-Palestine, super pro-Hamas. And so this is the situation in downtown Chicago just before the beginning of the DNC convention.
As the Democratic National Convention is set to begin, area businesses are taking some precautions.
WGN's Andrea Medina shows you how some companies in the loop are starting to board up ahead of the big event.
Given the uncertainty surrounding next week's convention, businesses are taking steps to prevent potential threats to their property like looting or vandalism by adding protection.
We've had zero indication that there would be any protections down in the loop.
That's why the owner of Sid Jerome Menswear is reinforcing his downtown store by covering up the windows with plywood in anticipation of possible civil unrest and violent protests that may come from the Democratic National Convention next week.
We know
civil unrest and massive protests by the same people that Kamala Harris bailed out when they basically destroyed Seattle and all the other cities after the George Floyd thing. It's a little bit weird, guys. Think about it. Kamala Harris bailed out those criminals who now are going to Chicago. One will expect a different kind of scenario in Chicago. If you are a leftist city, you're doomed to stay a leftist city. At least welcome all the leftists and just have a great, a different kind of approach. Instead, this is Chicago. They are trying to protect their businesses because these leftists are a bunch of crazy lunatics. That's the truth. And this whole psychological operation of making Kamala Harris the next Obama is not working yet. And some leftists will probably do something during the DNC convention. Maybe they will destroy, do all those things they have done also recently in Washington, no? When basically they banned the American flag. They started ruining all kinds of monuments, and no accusations brought those people to be condemned in the same way of the January 6th, how you want to call the January 6th guys. I mean, you can call them rioters because they were almost invited. They were actually invited inside the Capitol Hill. But this is Chicago, a city that instead of being happy of the DNC convention is actually scared.
From past experiences that something could ensue. So we wanted to be proactive and get ahead of it.
The men's clothing shop is located on Madison Street, which is down the block from City Hall and along the main route to the United Center, where significant gatherings are expected. The owner hopes these measures will be sufficient to prevent potential damages and avoid a repeat of past incidents.
We've been a victim on 4 separate occasions where we've been vandalized or looted for, various incidents or events that happened in the city.
They're not alone in their concerns. The Chicago Board of Services says their crews have been actively boarding up storefronts over the past few days to mitigate losses and destruction. So far, they've secured 12 locations around the West Loop, downtown, and Daly Center area, with plans to board up additional.
This is kind of a paradox if you think about it. This is a short circuit of the left. I mean, this is the city of Obama. This is Chicago. This is the place you will never imagine the leftists creating problems for the left. Yes, because they are completely insane. Most of the people who suffer from mental health issues today in our societies, they are leftists. That's another interesting aspect that is never discussed by anybody. Today, the major consumption of antidepressants is from people who actually are leftists, who actually side with the policies of the left. And it doesn't bring them joy in their personal life. It doesn't bring them a sense of tranquility. In fact, they are all paranoid, schizophrenics, and all the rest together. And every single pathology you can imagine. They have panic attacks. They have all kinds of things because they don't have God in their life. They are Satanists. They are godless. So this is the only explanation for what is happening in Chicago at the eve of the DNC convention.
Businesses this weekend.
We're not pushing it. We're hoping that the city will be comfortable and there will be no unrest. But if you feel that you want your doors boarded, it's better to board them up than to wait and have to board them up and replace glass.
A spokesperson with the Chicago Loop Alliance indicates that they believe the convention will go off successfully without harming businesses and considers boarding up with plywood to be unnecessary, though they understand why business owners are taking these precautions. Mayor Brandon Johnson is also confident the DNC will proceed smoothly with the support of the Chicago Police Department.
But we're also coordinating with Secret Service and other local law enforcement agencies to ensure that we have a vibrant, safe, productive DNC.
The board-up company says if businesses need something boarded up, they encourage them to do it ahead of the convention, but they say that crews will be available if they need something done next week.
Okay, did you bring also your AK-47? Because Chicago is the place where there is more shootings than Baghdad on an ordinary day. We're talking about one of the most violent cities in the world. I mean, at times there is more shootings going on in Chicago than in Tijuana. So that's the kind of city Chicago is. Just so, you know, I'm sorry that Frank Sinatra lived in a different period. When the Italian mob was in charge of the city, there was much more security. When there were people like Sam Gincana, at least there was some kind of sense of security in that city. Nowadays, you get what you get, and you get what you vote. So that's it. Enjoy the DNC convention. I will see you for the second part of the show that is broadcast exclusively on X and Rumble. In a few minutes, we have a musical interlude. I want to thank once again the sponsors that have made possible this broadcast today: Bruce Kodich, Daniel Estes, Lance Roberts, Margot Rosada Minta, David Kammerer. And of course, next week, my wife will rejoin me once again. We are, of course, still mourning for the loss of our beloved Rambo Zagami. And I see you for the second part of the show in a couple of minutes after the Vincenzo Viceversa musical interlude with the images of our friend Albert from Telepandemia. This is the Leo Zagami Show on August 17th, 2024.
In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization. In the negative utopia, science, technology,